Why do I call it the Viktor D20 show, since it's just supposed to be the D20 show? Am I just... I mean... I guess I'm just fucking dumb. That wouldn't surprise me. Wait, shit, it was recording? Oh, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mad Ramblings of Viktor D20. I am your host, Master Mage Viktor D20, and yeah, it's another Mad Ramblings video. They're easy to record, easy to produce, they're easy to upload, they're easy to make in general, so like, you know, just don't complain about it, okay? Nobody likes a complainer. But anyway, today's topic is a rather niche one. You see, the RPG industry is always getting new additions to its ranks, so to speak. There's always a new indie RPG on the market, you know, on Kickstarter, or you can find them on a drive-through RPG. You know, I once wrote an RPG system myself, but back then I didn't know what world building was, so I just assumed everybody would know everything I knew. Yeah, I was a brainless fucking idiot back then, but you know, it is what it is, and you know, just about yeah, but anyway, I have a friend in Sweden. Yeah, I know, it's a bit of a shock that a Finnish person could even befriend a Swedish person, but it can happen. So yeah, I have a friend in Sweden, Rebecka, who is working on her own RPG system and setting, which is currently waiting to be launched on Kickstarter. And that will be today's topic on the Mad Ramblings. Welcome to the D20 show, or the Mad Ramblings of Viktor D20, and today's topic is the RPG system Frostmark. Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes of, you know, the mechanics and the setting, I first want to read the thoughts of one of the players I personally ran Frostmark for, and that being a good friend of mine, Reece, who you may also remember as the player of Ocean Petal Gem. You know, the Fae. Yeah, him. And yeah, he sent me an extensive TXT file, which I immediately had to reformat into a different reading software so I could read it better, because the TXT format is just... it's not great. But yeah, it's several paragraphs worth of reading, so let's get right to it, shall we? Here are some thoughts on Frostmark then. It's been a while since I used the system, and I'm not sure how much it has changed since I played. Same. So I can only comment based on my own experience. I like that it had more options than D&D. I was able to build a fighter equivalent, but choose not to have proficiencies in any weapons or armor, and actually benefited from that in non-combat situations, as I was able to get more of the regular skills in place of those. In D&D, while I could have chosen not to use weapons or armor, doing so would have disadvantaged my character, as I wouldn't have gained any benefits from that, meaning my character would have been objectively worse than that of someone who played a more generic fighter, whereas in combat and equally useful out of combat. So having more control over skills and proficiencies is a definite benefit of Frostmark. I also like the point buy table being the standard method for selecting stats, as point buy is fairer than rolling in my opinion. Well, your opinion is your opinion, Reece, but your opinion is kind of wrong in my opinion, since it puts everyone on equal footing, and the different campaign power levels determining how many points players could start with is a nice touch, which I expect is a helpful guide for GMs who want to run games above or below the usual power level. Ain't that the truth? The race choices work much like the races do in D&D, though I'd note here that since the release of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, yeah, sure. I mean, personally not a fan of Tasha's, but like, whatever rocks people's boats. People can like it, I personally it exists. Official D&D now offers more freedom in this area than the version of Frostmark which I played. I played back before Tasha's release though, so the current version's race options may already have been changed to allow more freedom. I absolutely think that offering greater levels of freedom for character customization is Frostmark's greatest advantage over standard D&D, so keeping the more restrictive racial bonuses would be highly counterintuitive in my view. Now, real quick, before I continue reading this, Reece's views, they are good views, like, they're modern views, But me and Reece, we come from different generations of RPG players. Because I was raised on more the old school ideals and made to believe that restrictions are okay, which I mean they are okay. There's nothing wrong with restricting things, and Reece believes Reece believes in his own thing. So like, more power to Reece, of course. Moving on. Being able to use the potential mechanic, we'll talk about that when we get to the mechanics, to select spells and spell slots for the spellcasting feature was also something I was really fond of, rather than having preset spell list and spell slot counts for the different classes. Though sadly, at the time that I played, the non-spellcasting uses of potential were incredibly lame by comparison. I agree. They were single use, while the alternative was to permanently gain another spell or spell slots, making the correct choice blatantly obvious. It sounds like someone's a little bit of a wizard favorite, but whatever. As mentioned previously, I like that I could choose to play a fighter without proficiencies, without being disadvantaged, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to choose not to have spells without being disadvantaged. This works okay in a high magic setting, but if the Frostmark system is intended to function only in high magic settings, then it might as well just entirely do away with the option of spending potential on anything other than spells and spell slots, because the way it is now feels like a trap for players unfamiliar with the system, at least to me. I mean, actually, I actually agree with Reece on that one. It kind of feels trappy, but like, we'll talk about the settings soon, so you'll understand that it's not exactly high magic either. By spending potential on a one-time bonus, a player is effectively permanently handicapping their character. Okay, yeah, I see that. Personally, I'd prefer if it could also be spent on non-magical benefits of some sort, but getting rid of the non-spellcasting uses of potential and just accepting that everyone was going to be using magic is still a better option than the way it was when I played. Yeah, we played quite a while ago, so there has been a lot of changes to the system, but we'll get to those soon, again. Lastly, I think Frostmark's biggest weakness is that it can't seem to make up its mind whether it wants to be a D&D setting or something unique. While the underlying mechanics are somewhat different from D&D's, and certainly offer a lot more freedom, and it's true that the default setting isn't the Forgotten Realms, the races, classes, spells and such are blatantly taken from D&D. I mean, so is in Pathfinder, so like, shut up about it. I mean, Frostmark is just another Pathfinder, really, but if like Pathfinder was more mechanically diverse. I said it! If Frostmark wants to appeal to a broader audience, the best and easiest thing to do would be to strip away all the custom lore from the system and sell it as a D&D expansion via DM's Guild to take advantage of their greater leeway in using existing D&D content. I think a D&D expansion which greatly increased character customization options would prove very popular. Okay, Reece, but this is intended to be a competitor to D&D, so like, while I do agree that it would be a lot easier to make money, this is a passion project. You can't diss it like that, man. Alternatively, to try and sell Frostmark as a separate system, the lore is already very distinct from Forgotten Realms. Ha! Suck it, FR. Suck it, Greenwood. So, that's not an issue, but almost everything else has just been ported over from D&D, which I strongly suspect could result in a lawsuit. It has since been changed, so like this is a little bit outdated information, I think. I need to check. Should it ever become popular enough and profitable enough for WotC to care? As such, coming up with unique, or at least substantially different, classes, races and spells would be a very good though difficult idea if that's the route Frostmark is heading down. And that is the thoughts of Reece. My god, that was a lot to read there, but we got through it, and now we can move on to other stuff in these mad ramblings. Okay, so now that we've soldiered our way through Reece's thoughts on the setting... the system, not the setting. The setting is a completely different thing, because I ran him through a homebrew setting, rather than the official Frostmark setting. But yeah, those were his thoughts, and anyway, now we can get to the meat and potatoes rather than the appetizers. So, let's go. Now, let's talk about characters first and foremost, because Frostmark is very character-driven. Each character should have a backstory, because it's very important to you who your character is, because that will help you determine your ability origins, or AOs. It'll help you determine your skills, stuff like that. And it's generally a good idea to have a backstory, like in RPGs in general, but in Frostmark it's part of the game to have a backstory. It's something you need to have. So, you determine your stats through point buy rather than rolling, as stated in Reece's thoughts on the game, and there are 3 power levels. Now, they're not mentioned in the teaser for document that I was given by Rebecka. However, there's plenty of information here on the different stats. The stats in question are physical stats like brawn, dexterity, and vitality, which are strength, dex, and con. And then there are the mental stats, which help you in spellcasting and stuff like that. And then there are the social stats, which, this is a 9-stat system. Now, while it's intimidating at first, it's really not that bad. Hit points function very similar to D&D 5th edition. Actually, I think it's just a carbon copy of D&D 5e's health system, but D&D's health system works, so it works. If it works, it works. That's how we do. That's how it do be. Simple enough. Now, the skills in the game are dependent on skill rank. So your proficiency bonus, which I believe starts at a +2. So it's, again, like kind of a 5e mechanic, which has been ported to Frostmark, but it works. So, there are several skill ranks, which go all the way up to rank 5, rather than D&D 5e's skill system, where you just have proficient and expert, and then just untrained entirely. So, rank 1, you get your proficiency bonus times 0.5, which means that it's halved. Then at rank 2, it's just your proficiency bonus is a solid. Rank 3, your proficiency bonus times 1.5, which is rounded up. Then rank 4, your proficiency bonus times 2. And then rank 5, you are the master of your skill, and 2.5 rounded up is your skill proficiency multiplier. So it uses multipliers rather than just, bonuses of some kind. So it's pretty cool, it's pretty neat. Each ability origin also provides bonuses to skill ranks, and it reads on, rather some do, not all of them. It reads in the description of the ability origin whether or not it does. Now, when I first made a Frostmark character, I made a power ability origin character called Grunbeld. And yes, I was pretty big on Berserk, and I still am pretty big on Berserk, so, it made sense, in a way. So, it was sort of, Grumble was sort of my way of paying homage to the fucking Fire Dragon, or Fire Dragon Knight, rather, or Red Dragon Knight. I don't remember what he was called. It's been a while since I've seen Grumble in Berserk. Actually, is he still around? I think he's still around. But, rambling, less rambling, more rambling. The power character gets no bonuses to their skill proficiency, so they don't get any additional ranks to invest in their skills, rather. So I had to really just be very tactical about what I was gonna do with Grumble, because he was a tanky fellow, very tanky, in fact, and he was a great character to play, actually. Like, I could tell some stories about Grunbeld before I was dropped from the Frostmark playtesting. It was mostly due to me being a busy man at the time, or being asleep. Either I was asleep or I was busy, or both. Now, I won't go too deeply into Frostmark's magic system, but it's basically powered on souls. So you can slay a foe and you can steal their soul. Okay? You following? And then you can use the soul to cast your spells. And there's a ritual for draining souls. You can get a soul from a slain enemy, So, you know, again, like, I'm not gonna go too deep into it because we'd be here for a long time, but that's basically all you really need to know about it for now. And then, of course, there's also different backgrounds tied to the character, or tied to the main setting, rather. I'm sorry, but like they're also tied to the character, of course. They're the character's background and where they came from. And that's actually a very good segue to start talking about the setting of Frostmark, the world of Frostmark. Now, because I want to keep this video roughly finite in favor, I won't go into too much detail about the world, but first let me introduce you to a basic rundown of its backstory. Basically, there used to be all these gods and they created all these fantasy races, but eventually one of these gods, Rian, got jealous and decided to overthrow all the other gods and took over the world of Frostmark. All the other gods were banished to their own realms, and the Church of Rian has held power over the people for a long time. Basically, just keeping the people in the worship of Rian. However, some small breakaway groups are worshipping these other gods, although the church paints them more as demons rather than actual gods, you know, divine entities. And a magical barrier keeps all the fantastical shit out of Frostmark. So it's very human-centric. Until it's not. Because there is a point in time, which is up to the GM, when the barrier breaks. And does it break instantly, or does it slowly wither away? You see, with the barrier breaking, all the fantastical shit, dragons and stuff, begins returning to the world. And that is where the story of the game really comes in, because there is this metaplot that is part of the game, and it's you know, it's a pretty neat metaplot. Now, I'm not a big fan of metaplots because, you know, there's something about them that just irks me, but you know, it is pretty cool. It's a cool backstory, and you know, it works. So there's that, and with the backstory out of the way, let's get to some of the more setting-specific stuff. And also, let me talk a little bit about the art, like just a quick tangent. The art has been made by the amazing Art, and you know what? My favorite piece is this Bjornish chieftain. Bjorn from the land of Bjornheim, of course. And this Bjornish chieftain, goddamn, I'd let her step on me. Great art, 10 out of 10. Okay, so after taking another look at the map, turns out it's Bjornhelm, not Bjornheim. I know where I got Bjornheim from. It must have been from Midgard, because I still haven't played another session of that campaign, and it's making me very tense. But, nevertheless, yeah, each nation of Frostmark has their own thing going. Like, for example, Bjornhelm is kind of like Canada meets Norway, I think, or Canada meets Sweden, because she is Swedish. Then there's the nation of Greenfield, which is kind of like, I think, Germany, and you know, the further south you go, the more there is to discover, like, you know, different cultures and stuff. And yeah, I think the playtest took place in Greenfield, so that was an interesting time in my life when I was just running around Greenfield being grumbled. Then I was dropped out after I turned out to be a little bit too heavy sleeper back in those days. I mean, I still sometimes sleep in the middle of the day and forget that I was supposed to have a session. But you know, those days are for the most part behind me now, and you know, again, like, the world is very cool, and in fact, I'm just gonna link the Frostmark teaser in the description below, and you can experience the world for yourselves. And you know, a few more things of note, of course, to bring up are the different realms of the different gods. Like, for example, there is this personally, my favorite god is Tyrannus, and Tyrannus' realm is torn apart by wars between divine and fiendish forces, and you know, it's a very cool world. You can run campaigns in the realms of the gods, or you can run a campaign in the world of Frostmark, and in the end, it is up to the players to, like, you know, decide the fate of the world, so it's not entirely tied to the metaplot. It's kind of like the metaplot is there, but the players can affect the metaplot, so it's actually just a plot that the players, you know, they can forge. And of course, the GM can decide to start in a different part of the timeline as well. So that's also, like, you know, that's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, it's linked in the description. And one more thing of note is, of course, the different NPC and monster stat blocks that have been put in the teaser. So there is the Bjornish chieftain, then there is a knight valiant, and Knight of the Valiant, I think it was. And my personal favorite monster from here is the Sunset Howler, which is just a monkey with a giant lung bag. And I think a large enough pack could kill a person by blowing their brains up, which is pretty cool. Or just permanently deafen them as well, that's also an option. So yeah, that's all I have to say. And that's all I have to ramble, because we're starting to run out of time, and, you know, Reece's thoughts are still there, so... But again, the system has been changed a lot. Like, for example, the potential for non-casters now works differently. You can instead give yourself an inspiration die that you can use in a dice roll. It's, you know, pretty cool stuff. And with this, I bid you once again farewell, dear viewers of the D20 show. And this has been the Mad Ramblings of Viktor D20, and I bid you all a very good day, or night, evening, morning, whatever the hell. And remember to keep on rolling, and until next time, stay frosty.